friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Laura. Usually when you come here you can find me making something. Today I am going to get started on a new quick and easy pattern project, crochet project. I'm going to be making a quick and easy ribbed brim beanie. So if you saw the last video, we made a ribbed cuff for some fingerless gloves. We're going to do the same sort of style for a beanie. That way you can have a matching set. What you're going to need for this project: yarn. I'm going to be using 2 strands of number 2 weight yarn. I'm using wool. You could use a number 4 or a number 5 weight wool if you just want to use 1 strand or one piece of yarn. I'm just going to use 2 to see what we can get. I've got this red and green Christmassy, and then I've got this rainbow sort of 90s color palette, and I want to see what happens when we put them together. You're also going to need a crochet hook. I am using a 6mm crochet hook today. You'll need some scissors to cut your yarn, a yarn needle to sew it up in the end, and a measuring tape if you want to make it for a specific head size. So, if you want to make this, stay tuned. Okay, so to get started, we're going to need to get our yarn ready. I'm just going to put my yarn off to the side because it's going to get in the way having 2 balls of yarn going at once. So I've got a little yarn bowl here. I'm just going to keep them in so they can roll around in there and they won't get in the way of filming, hopefully. So step 1, we're going to create a slip knot. Then we're going to chain 36. 1, 2, 35, and 36. There's our chain. At this point, the chain measures about 10 inches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first chain stitch, and then we're going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Just a regular single crochet. And then we're going to single crochet into the next 9 stitches. Just a regular single crochet in the next 9 chain stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that's going to be a total of 10 single crochet stitches, and that is going to be where our brim is. Let me zoom you in a little bit. Now we've gone through our first 10 chain stitches. For the rest, the final 25 stitches, we're going to be doing half double crochets. So at this point, it's a good point to get a stitch marker out and mark that stitch where you're doing single crochet so that we know when to switch between half double and single. So, like I said, in the next 25 chain stitches, just complete regular half double crochets. If you're new to crochet and any of the stitches I use in this pattern seem complicated to you, don't worry about it. I've got tutorials for every stitch that I use in this pattern. I will link them in the iCard up at the top corner, as well as in the description down below. So, if you are new, I really do hope that you will subscribe to the channel because I am putting out new videos pretty frequently, I should say, every week, every 2 weeks, depending on if I can get it done or not. But I would love to have you along for the journey, so definitely hit the subscribe button. And if you're liking the video so far, click the like button. It really helps the channel. It helps all of your favorite YouTubers grow when you like those videos. So definitely don't forget to hit that like button. All right, and here we are at the end of our first row. I just finished my final stitch. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to turn my work. Ooh, that's kind of looking fun. The colors, I like it. All right, so now we're going to work into the first 25 stitches. We're going to work half double crochets. So let me get my stitch marker to make this a little easier. All right, I found a stitch marker. This is gonna make it a lot easier. If you don't have stitch markers, don't panic. You can definitely just tie a piece of yarn around your 10th stitch. So we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there is our, where we're going to switch back to single crochets is where that marker is. So if you don't have a stitch marker and you want to count stitches, it's the first 25 stitches. We're gonna do half double crochets in those. I am going to do a variation on the half double crochet though. Rather than putting my hook into the top of the stitch like you normally would and completing a half double crochet as normal, I am going to yarn over and insert my hook into the big space between 2 stitches. So I'm going to insert into this big hole here. That's going to keep the stitch just a little bit tighter, which will keep the half double crochet from taking up way more space than the single crochet back here. So until we get to the stitch marker, just half double crochet in those big gap spaces all the way down. When you get to the stitch marker, come back here and I will show you what we're gonna do. All right, so now I am back at my single crochet stitches. So I've got 10 stitches left in the row. What I'm going to do on these single crochet stitches is single crochet, but I am going to do back loops only. So that means inserting your hook only into the back loop of the stitch, not both loops at the top of the stitch, like that. And then I'm going to complete a single crochet, if I can get around that stitch marker, there we go. And then I am going to single crochet back loops only all the way up until we hit the last stitch of the row. Okay, and on the last stitch of the row, I'm going to do a regular single crochet, so through the whole stitch, not just through the back loops. That's just going to create a really nice, straight, secure edge. You can do back loops only all the way around, but I do like having the edges have that security. All right, so now we are on row number 3. What we're going to do for row number 3, in the first stitch, we're going to do a regular single crochet, keeping that row straight. Then, until we hit the stitch marker, which will be 9 stitches, we're going to single crochet in the back loops only. So just for those first stitches up until we hit the stitch marker, we're going to do single crochet in the back loops only. This back loops only is what creates the ribbed appearance, the ribbed texture, which is going to look so cute on the brim of our hat. There we go. And once I hit that stitch marker, I'm going to switch back into half double crochet. Still, I am going to be half double crocheting in the, hold on, okay, in the space between the 2 stitches. So I'm going to half double crochet into this big gap here. And then you can just half double crochet all the way to the end of the row. At the end of the row, chain 1 and turn it around. Okay, so from here on, it's really easy street. We are just going to be repeating that for as long as it takes for the rectangle to measure around your head. For me, that's going to be a total, I believe, of 66 rows. That's what I have mathed it out based on how many stitches I've got in an inch. I just wrapped it around my head and I did a rough calculation. My assumption at this point is that it's going to take me 66 rows in order to make this large enough to become a hat. If you've got a smaller head than me, you might not have to go so long. Basically, we're going to continue this pattern of half double crochet for that long portion of the rectangle, and then single crochet back loops only for as many rows as it takes for that rectangle to measure around your head. It's a pretty easy repeat once you get into it, and if you've got that stitch marker or a piece of yarn that you can tie around the stitch where you need to switch back into single crochet, then there's no counting. You don't have to worry about counting. You can just zoom across, and when you hit your stitch marker, switch to the back loops only single crochet, and vice versa with the half double crochet. So I'm now on my 4th row, which if you need it in more explanation, it's a repeat of row number 2, which is half double crochet for the first 25 stitches. In the next 9 stitches, single crochet back loops only. In the final stitch, regular single crochet. So if my instructions aren't quite clear enough, I do have the bullet journal version of the pattern right here in my bullet journal. And for everyone who is a member of my Patreon, from the lowest tier all the way up, you have access to all of my bullet journal written patterns. I take a photo of my bullet journal, a nice flat lay photo, and I add it into the Patreon so that you can have access and you can print it out if you want to keep a printed out version of this pattern. It's got all of the instructions that I follow, and it's got some extra little help bits. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely check out the link in my description down below. And thank you to those of you who are already patrons. I really do appreciate all of you. I'm gonna put the names of my patrons up on the screen right now. Usually I keep it at the end of the video, but I just want to remind my patrons how much I'm thankful for them. So thank you guys for supporting me on Patreon. And even if that's not your thing, don't worry about it. The patterns are still going to be here as a tutorial for free. So if you don't want to pay anything at all, you can just watch the video. Okay, so for the rest of this pattern, I am going to zoom through just the stitches of single crochet back loops only and half double crochet. I'm going to skip through until I get to the point where my rectangle is long enough, and you go ahead and crochet along with me, and we will meet back up here once we've got a rectangle that is long enough to make it all the way around your head. And from there, I will show you how we're going to put this hat together, and then we'll see how it actually came out. All right, and there is my last stitch. So here is my final rectangle. Doesn't that look so pretty? You can see now the detail that that ribbed first section gives. It kind of draws the hat in, which will keep it nice and snug around your ears, but it also adds just a little extra detail that I think makes it a little more fun than just your basic rectangle beanie. I'm gonna give you the measurements now, just so you know how big I made it. So at the, I'm gonna call it the accordion side. The ribbed side is 16 inches, but obviously it stretches. And at the top, where it's been half double crochet the whole way, let's have a look. It's 20 inches, 21 inches. So you can see how the ribbed brings in the hat. So now what we're gonna be doing, oh, I should tell you the height too. The half double crochet portion is just about 8.5 inches, and then the back loops only is just about 2.5, for a total length of just about 11 inches. So 11 inches is how tall the hat is, but if you're making a rectangle in another stitch, or if you're making a rectangle just like mine, I would say aim for about 20 inches. Now, let me count the rows so I can tell you how many rows it actually took for me. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 52, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60, 62, 64. Wow, I guessed 66. That was my guess based on my swatch. I came pretty close. 64 rows is very close. I'm giving myself a solid B+ for that one. Okay, so now it's time for us to actually assemble the hat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be assembling it with single crochets. Sorry, I had to think that through. I'm going to first fold this over. So first, fold over the hat so that you've got a rectangle. And you want to finish your crochet work so that you're at the bottom, so that you're at the brim of the hat. That way, when we put it together, we'll be stitching up the hat, and then we'll be able to close the top portion of the hat, and we won't have any strings to worry about weaving in, which is always nice. So like I said, I'm folding my hat over. I've got the yarn, working yarn still attached. I'm not doing a chain one or anything. I just finished that final single crochet. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull that loop through the first stitch on the other side with my hook. So this first stitch is going to be a little difficult just because it's actually your chain, your initial chain. But I'm just going to pull that loop through. And once it's through, I'm going to put my hook back into that loop. Let me show you up close. Okay, so I've got my final loop. I'm going to put my crochet hook into the first stitch on the other side. I'm going to wrap the loop, I'm going to wrap the loop around the hook, and I'm going to pull that loop right through. Now, the hat is beginning its assembly. You can see now we're working into the same attachment stitches we're going to be attaching. I'm going to do single crochet just because I like how secure it is and I like what it looks like on the inner seam. You can use a blanket stitch or a slip stitch or whatever works for you. So I'm going to get started by putting my hook into the next stitch in the row and then the next chain on the other side, and then I'm just going to do a single crochet, and I'm going to do that all the way down until my, hold on there, nope, you've been used already, until my hat is all the way assembled. There's the first one, going to do a single crochet, and then the second one, going to do a single crochet, and I'm just going to single crochet my way up to the top of the hat. You should do that too, and when you get to the top of the hat, I will meet you up there and I will show you how we're going to close that top section so that it's hat and not just a tube. Although at this point, I suppose if you just did up this seam, you'd kind of have a cowl. Might be a little bit of a weird cowl, but you know, rock it. You do you. So I'm just going to zoom through this because it's like not particularly entertaining to watch me single crochet this closed as I'm struggling to see where to put my hook. But I'm going to zoom through this and I will meet you when I am finished crocheting up the side. Like I said though, feel free to use slip stitches or the blanket stitch. If you want to sew it closed, you could use a blanket stitch and that would work just fine. I just feel like I like the strength that comes with a single crochet. Also, if you've made it to this point in the video, click the like button if you haven't already. I mean, you're already here, you might as well click it. Plus, it really does help the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you can take a second, scroll down a little bit and click that like button. All right, and here I am doing the final stitch. I'm grabbing the tail from that top piece, and there we go. Now that whole top, the whole side, sorry, is crocheted together, which means now we've got this nice little tube. And you can see the seam right here, but from the outside, it's not going to be visible, so don't worry too much about that. Now what we're going to do is give ourselves some length to work with, but cut your yarn. Give yourself some length, but then you can cut it. And now I'm going to just chain one and pull it through And now that is, the whole side seam is done. We're done with the crochet hook now. What we're gonna do now is take the yarn and thread up our yarn needle. What I'm going to do, because I think this is a good idea, I'm going to fold the yarn and I'm going to be using I'm doubling up. So 4 strands of yarn for me, but really 2 strands of yarn because I've made the tail. You can see one end's attached here and this is the long end of the tail. So let me zoom you out. Actually, let me zoom you in for the beginning of this. So what we're gonna do first is weave the needle in and out through all of these rows. So I'm going to start from the bottom here and I'm just gonna go up and then I'm gonna go back down through the row and then up. And I'm gonna do that all the way around the hat and down and up through each row is going to have me weaving up and down through it like this, up and down, nothing fancy. I'm just gonna do that all the way around until I'm back where I started. And there we go. So, oop, I made it almost all the way around. Nope, I've made it all the way around. Where's that tail? There we go. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is put it through the last stitch, and that is actually where the seam is, which is great. That way it's gonna have a really nice snug area, and then I'm gonna draw it closed. So all that weaving, if you pull on the tail, you're gonna end up pulling that hat closed. See how the hole's getting smaller? So what I'm gonna do is just keep pulling until it closes up completely. I'm only being gentle because this is wool and I don't want to rip it, or I don't want it like break the yarn. And now that I'm there, I'm going to just tie a knot with those other tails that were sticking out. Just gonna pull it nice and tight. We don't want that hole to be visible from the outside at all. And I'll just tie another knot. Oops. And I mean, you really could call it a day at this point and say you're done, but I always just go over that hole a bunch of times with my yarn needle. Not neatly, not with much care. I just try to make sure it's got lots of secure places to keep that hole closed. It also gets rid of your tail pretty easily, your yarn tail, so then you don't have any bits that are gonna stick out and look not cute. We don't want that. And that way it's just gonna be extra strong. And there we go. And now I'm just gonna cut that tail, what's left of it. And guess what? We just flip it inside out and then you're done. Look, look at this cute little slouchy beanie. You can see that ribbed texture. It brings the beanie in so that it will stay on your ears. Oh, that looks so cute actually. I'm really happy with that. What do you think? Here, let me add some outro footage so you can see what it looks like on me as a hat. And then maybe I'll even show you what it looks like on Alex as a hat, just so you can see 2 different sort of styles that work with the same thing. But there it is. What do you think? The quick and easy ribbed brim beanie. A reminder, all of my patterns are available to all of my patrons. Starting at $2 a month, you can have access to all of my bullet journal patterns, including this one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and let me know if you're gonna try to make this for anyone. You could definitely get it done before Christmas. It took me, I'm gonna say probably 2 hours to complete it, but I was also filming and I took breaks and I was streaming for part of it. So it might not take you quite 2 hours, but about 2 hours I would say for a beginner. So you could definitely get this finished in one evening. You could definitely get this finished before Christmas. So let me know if you're gonna make it for anybody in your life, and subscribe, like the video, all the things. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!